One, two. Okay, so we are recording and how do you? All right, so I don't know. I need to come up with a clever greeting or something. I guess everybody does that nowadays. Uh, yeah, I guess that's a good segue into the apparent just improvised nature of this. I don't know if it's gonna be channel or not, but at least this outlet, output of dialogue, if you will, regarding yoga, it just couldn't wait any longer. I mean, there's many things that have to be corrected, addressed in a technical matter. Maybe a better setting, better lighting, better audio, whatever, and hopefully that if this continues, that will definitely will be addressed and it will improve. But the the fact of the matter is that the message couldn't wait any longer. So that's why, and I apologize beforehand, that's why this might look a little bit improvised or perhaps not as well prepared, but hopefully the message gets across, at least this initial introduction of what the whole point is of starting this whatever it is. I wouldn't necessarily call it podcast, maybe because of a bias and kind of rejection, reluctance to accept that type of labeling. But anyway, maybe it is. I'm not really expert on the subject. What this aims to do, this effort or this initiative, is to address important issues, to put it mildly, in the world of yoga, in the context of yoga, and to be quite honest, also in the larger context, like the world platform. How does that interact or interplay in the like broader context of the world? So I guess this is the segue into the introduction. Hello and welcome to whatever this is. For sure, it's a certain type of rant and rant from a not very advanced person when it comes to yoga, but a person who is somewhat properly aligned by the grace and virtue of the tradition that I represent. And I tried, as flawed as I am, of course, I try to represent that faithfully and just straightforwardly, not funny business. So yeah, there's not much of an introduction. My name is Yogeshwara. I'm keenly interested in the subject matter of human transcendence and the quest for that transcendence. I think that that's inherent in all human beings, although in most, the vast majority, that's a latent nature and tendency. Like it's kind of somewhere there, hidden very, very far on the back of a person's existence. For some of us, it becomes more of a inclination and more of a necessity at some point, and then one just really kind of vows for it as a purpose in life. So that's more or less where this is heading for people in that threshold. Problem is that people in that threshold, as romantic as it would appear, that you starting to wake up, and the issue is that that waking up generally lands people in the wrong side of the waking up process. I guess it puts you right back to sleep, but with a notion of wakefulness, if that makes sense. And that's even more dangerous than just being plain out fast asleep, taking that as a analogy. So that's the issue. That's the issue to attack here. That this sort of in between, this twilight zone between being asleep and being like a gross materialist, only this world matters, like I am my body, my mind, my thoughts, etc., my things. We take that as being fast asleep, and then being fully enlightened, meaning transcending this material world and moving into the spiritual reality, the original reality, as yoga proposes. There's a middle point of we could say like a battle, right? Like a battle between staying asleep and waking up. and we can associate that to the battle of waking up every day. Also, it's of course those that have habit and strong willpower, and have done that repeated way in a very disciplined way. The waking up battle is not at all a difficult one, even though it never stops being a battle. There's always this difficulty to getting up. But for those that have no discipline at all, no structure for facing that battle, it's always a difficult situation. People stay in bed till late, or there's all kind of fluctuation, etc. Anyway, you get the point, you get the analogy. So that's where this is heading, to that in between transition period, which most people fall and fail back to being asleep. So that's the battle that we're fighting now when it comes to yoga. That's what we are here to discuss. Not in this single video, of course. This is probably gonna take a long time, and hopefully in the future we have other people addressing different angles of this issue. We invite some people to speak, relevant people, of course, and perhaps open on some discussions, debates, even testimonies, etc., etc. So let's see where this heads. For now, this first video, this kind of introductory video, it's just to rant, just to rant a little bit against those that knowingly, or sometimes knowingly, actually, knowingly, or maybe unknowingly, are actually enemies of yoga as a traditional spiritual science, as a transcendental science. They're being working against that inherent goal of yoga, which is already outlined, right? Like that's one of the fundamental principles or ABCs of yoga, is that it's already a complete system. It's not open for exploration. It's not open for debate or improvement, even just straight up. It's already a complete science, and what's left for the seeker to do is to align with those principles, understand first of all what's the goal, what's the process, and what are the requirements, the preliminary requirements for initiating that quest, that endeavor. That's basically the general structure of how one should approach it, so that you are informed of what you're getting into, and then you make a willful, conscious decision, as is everybody's right, to either take the first step, partake in that endeavor, or not, right? But the problem is now that people take this liberty to try to adjust the process, right? Try to change yoga, where that's not part of the deal at all. The idea here is that this is a descending knowledge system and spiritual practice, where the knowledge is descending, right? That's what we accept, and that's why every even those pseudo yoga outlets are based on. They're somewhat based. They're taking whatever watered down offer they have. At some point, they are taking it from that same causal origin. So everything is based on it. And if we part from that, then we don't have yoga anymore. We have something else. So unfortunately, the vast majority of what's out there is at best some pseudo yoga, mixture of different opinions, things, angles, traditions, taken apart, made a distillation of everything, and then just a conglomerate of ideas. And therefore, the biggest problem in the modern yoga community, circle, scene, whatever, is itself. Like, that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest detractor of yoga, is those that claim to be practicing yoga nowadays, because most people who are claiming that aren't, just quite frankly and honestly, they're not practicing yoga. It's not yoga that they're practicing. So that's the first point to make, that ironically. But first, a word from our sponsors.
we don't have any sponsors. So if you're looking to maybe sponsoring this video, just make sure that you follow all four regulative principles. You are a decent human being, and you're not cheating people either in yoga or anywhere else in life. And sure, we definitely appreciate the help and support, and by all means, sponsor this channel.
Those that are trying to share, let's say, yoga, are the ones that are making the most damage to it. Albeit, of course, there's those who are actually trying to share yoga from the classical perspective, and well, that's the marginalized minority for sure. So that's an issue. That's a problem that we find. So it is imperative to address this issue and these and more issues, because if we don't, if we just remain quiet, and the general public, those that are not really directly involved with yoga, but perhaps might in the future or would like to be involved in yoga, uh, if they get the wrong first impression or the wrong first instruction even about yoga, then that's it. It's usually a very difficult task to unlearn that properly, or even get past that first, yeah, let's say mistake or wrong Branti darshan, right? Like that wrong perspective of yoga. That's one of the antarayas of yoga. See, everything is based on this scriptural knowledge of what yoga is. That's what we have to, at least partially, that what we have to actually base the veracity of the process of the methodology of yoga. That and the living traditions, right? Like the unbroken line of disciples, students, and teachers of yoga, unbroken, right? That everybody, we have unbroken chain of people who have been practicing the same thing and being carefully and very adamantly keeping it safe from any sort of influence, meaning people that try to take things out of yoga or people that try to add something to yoga. So it's been yeah, incredible work and effort from thousands and thousands of yogis, spiritual scientists, as I like to call them, to keep this intact, to keep this faithful and reliable, for us to come now in the 21st century and find that the vast majority is going entirely against that, trying to eradicate all of that legacy just for convenience, sense enjoyment, just lucrative goals, etc. It's heartbreaking in a personal level, but externally also it's infuriating. How can it be that now in our microsphere of yoga also people have become so ungrateful of this blessing, of this gift of yoga, that they're willing to disregard it completely in the pursuit of their own selfish and personal agendas and goals. It's wonderful in the worst kind of ways. So it's important. I think it's of paramount importance to actually address this type of issues. I don't have many academic, or actually, let me rephrase that. I don't have any academic credentials. I don't have any undergraduate degree on this, religious and Eastern studies. If I don't have that, obviously, I don't have any masters or any sort of, spiritual academic background. I don't have any sort of, family lineage pedigree either. I'm the first of my own family to approach this science. But even though I lack those credentials, I believe I have the right ones. Even they are more modest and humble, they are, I think, the right ones, the relevant ones, which is I have been practicing yoga for the past 10 years, 8 of which I've been practicing with the single teacher, like the same teacher, under the same ancient spiritual lineage, yogic lineage. And that's basically what separates our small kind of fringe group now from the rest. Basically, that's something also rather regrettable. That those few outposts and presentations of classical traditional yoga are now the marginalized minority. They're put out on the fringes of this scene, of this modern yoga context, um, out of the center where they should be. And I find that incredibly ironic and also just saddening. Terrible stuff. Anyway, back to the topic. The real issue here, apart from of course doing it for the noble sake of yoga, that it shouldn't be watered down, it shouldn't be detracted from, there's another issue which is very important as well, which is that robbing somebody out there, and that's for sure, out of the millions of people out there, there are those who are like I found myself to be years back, desperately in need of something legitimate, something faithful to that original form, without any meddling or interference from anybody's personal agenda. Nobody's peddling agendas in traditional classical yoga. The only thing that is presented is yoga as it's been taught from time immemorial. So there are people like that. I know that there are. And robbing them from the opportunity to at least know about you, at least present it as it is, and robbing them from that opportunity to know it, that they might still say, okay, no, this is not for me, and whatever, fair enough. Everybody's got personal agency and free will. But robbing people from that opportunity, and hence robbing someone potentially from that possibility of practicing yoga, is just inherently wrong, because yoga is only meant for, let's say in the broader sense, for the betterment of the human being, for the perfection of human existence, which is transcending this material state, conditional state, right? Transcending that state of human with its limitations and moving back to that original spiritual nature and identity, Tadadrastu Svarupa Vastanam, right? To abide in one's own true self and nature. So to rob someone from that most high and noble of possibilities in life, it's an absolute disgrace to do that. To get in the way of that. At least one should stay out of the way. Like anybody who's trying to seek that out, let them seek that out. Let them, approach those that are willing to present it. But to get in the way, and then on top of that, actually misleading someone, not just getting in the way anymore, but actually misleading someone, not saying, I don't know, getting out of the way. But on top of that, saying, actually, I do know, and it's this way. When the understanding is that it's actually this other way, completely opposite direction. That's disingenuous, and it's borderline, and when it's done consciously, I think very much evil. That's an act of evil, to go against someone's best interest for my personal gain. That's almost like a definition of evil, right? That I'm purposely going against someone's best interest for my whatever, for my reasons, for my personal reasons. So that's a very difficult thing to just, one shouldn't sit by and accept that. One should at least speak out and against that, and this is a little bit of an effort to do that. That there are people out there who are doing that. You'd be surprised, actually. The most or the vast majority of people who are doing yoga nowadays, that's exactly what they're doing, by presenting a watered down, a pseudo yoga version of original traditional yoga. They're just presenting yoga as it appeals to people's initial desires and inclinations. I want to feel good. I want to feel good about myself. I want to be happy. I want to be quote unquote at peace, etc. Like this mental state of tranquility, which is just like an interruption from everyday anxiety and fear, and the very existential fear of non-transcendence, right? So instead of giving people the truth, which would be actually compassionate, but what these people now are doing are throwing like a little comfort blanket over people, and people of course applaud that. They think that, oh, it feels nice, thank you for that. But that's not true compassion. That's actually making the thing worse, right? The house is on fire, and you are putting somebody these ear mufflers and like a blanket on top and say like, don't worry, it's gonna be okay, instead of actually helping someone out of that awful and terrible situation. Now, what sets yoga apart from belief systems, because this is also very much a point that the pseudo yogis try to attack, right? That you're just like a Bible thumper, right? Like we base things on scriptural knowledge, which there isn't any problem with that, especially if the system works. We've spoken about how it's yoga's procedural methodology is presented as a descending system of knowledge. So you need to receive that knowledge from somewhere, and we base it on that scriptural revelation, a scriptural instruction, let's say, and as well as the disciplic chain of decoding that instruction. So both these things are inseparable, or should be inseparable, in order for proper attainment of the goals of yoga. That's part of the deal about yoga, that one should find a competent teacher, someone who is actually in that alignment of yoga, and learn from that person, ask questions, follow instructions, etc., so that one can actually advance. And through that advancement, one can see that descending process. It's like hitting the checkpoints, right? If the knowledge is descending, and then through that understanding I am moving closer to the source of knowledge, I should be able to experience and understand how that process is occurring within my own causal system. So that's been touched upon as well. Now, what sets yoga apart from belief system is that despite this transcendental nature of the process itself is actually empirical and quantifiable. Like what I just explained, that it goes upwards now, right? First, the understanding descends. I am born ignorant of my own condition, and I need some instruction, very much like just life in general, right? We are born without the capacity to speak or attend for ourselves, and then we are gradually increasing our capacity to interface with life. So in the process of transcending this state of material conditioning, we also progress in our understanding to interface now from that higher perspective of transcendence with the immediate surroundings. So it's again, this plays a lot into the topic of transcendence and what that means about reality, what that means about oneself, about that interfacing, and what it is all ultimately for. Which, like I said at the beginning of this whole rant, the simulation theory very slightly starts brushing into what actually yoga has to offer. Incredibly sophisticated way, but extremely straightforward as well. By sophisticated, I don't mean unapproachable or anything like that, but just sophisticated, meaning extremely detailed and precise way to actually. I don't like using the term hack. This is a terminology that people who push for this simulation theory like to use, that one has to first of all realize that you're living in simulation, and then that you have to hack the system somehow. There is no hacking per se. It's impossible to hack. If based on that simulation theory we accept that there's a super intelligence beyond this realm, then there's no way of hacking it. That would mean that our own limited intelligence would be on that level. So there's no means to reconcile the both. Either you are subjected to a inferior state of experience, which is this material world, by great intelligence, or that you're able to break out of it by your own effort and self-endeavor, which is again not reconcilable. So there are different details on the process of how to transcend, which is not the same as hacking. Let's say it's a let's leave it at much more complicated process. If anybody's interested in it, then by all means come practice and do go the whole 9 yards. Practice yoga and try to understand. This is nothing for a kind of rant in YouTube. That's not subject matter for a rant in YouTube. So anyway, yoga is quite scientific in that way. So it's quite different from the belief system. It's not just believe that you'll make it and it'll happen. It demands, apart from effort, it demands a great deal of understanding and high level understanding. So there's, at least in traditional yoga, this type of ideology which is famous in some yogic groups, that practice and all is coming. It doesn't really apply. That you just do kind of only the manual labor of yoga, which is very important. I have to accept that as well. It's essential also. Without it, you cannot go anywhere. You do have to work, but doing that mindlessly and without any understanding of what's happening is not enough. It's just simply not enough to actually attain the goal. So that's what is meant by sophisticated. Okay, so that's something. One needs to adhere and align oneself to that very specific set of steps in the recipe, so to speak, in order to achieve the desired goal. If someone was to give you the recipe, but it was corrupt, it was adulterated, it was messed with, that person thought that it would be better if you take this step out, if you put this other step in, and if you just kind of changed it a little bit, obviously you would get a different result. That would be a different type of recipe altogether. So who's at fault there? Obviously, well, the person who's administering that step-by-step recipe. So that's who we're addressing here. It's no short from cheating people. It's not short from deceiving people, abusing people, taking advantage of people. And that's just inherently wrong in any field, and particularly yoga, because now we're talking about a person's spiritual well-being, and that's perhaps a lot of people don't really see that as that important, because they don't find it anywhere relatable. That's not a topic that they would like to explore. That doesn't negate the fact that that's right. Like, according to this yoga philosophy, we are all spiritual beings, right? Like spiritual entities, individual units of consciousness. So it doesn't change the fact, but you might not be interested in it, and whatever. However, for those that are interested and they are being misled by others, being deceived by others, that's a high offense. That's a high crime when it comes to spiritual topics, and of course the universal or transcendental police, and policing energy of that supreme intelligence is out to get all of these people, but not without being also called out by the likes of me and others that's wrong, in the hope that maybe one of two of the people who are being deceived, the people who are being abused and taken advantage of, they will not become resentful of yoga, right? That this is BS. All of these people are cheaters. Most people are cheaters. I would agree with that. Yeah, most people are cheating there and just trying to get some personal gain out of the yogic platform. But not everyone. Yoga is noble and divine science, and is absolutely worthwhile. It's worth your time, is worth your effort, is worth your sincerity as well. Something that most people don't grant it. So this is what we're here to do: to call out the cheaters, the misleaders, to try to warn people from the general public from these people. Warn them that there are people like that, and you should be very careful who you trust in life in general, but particularly in yoga, because now we're dealing with something very, very, very precious and special, and delicate, which is your spiritual welfare, your spiritual well-being. So yeah, that's the whole message, basically, right? This is the whole message. um,
Chances are that if you're listening to this video, you probably don't have the means to become a sponsor of a channel. But maybe you do. So if you are in that position, why not? Help us point out all that is rotten and wrong in this modern yoga bubble, and at least help us, point the finger to it so that maybe we can make a difference and clean up the scene. Yeah, help out.
it is no surprise that the people who are practicing yoga in the classical sense, traditional way, trying to follow the scriptural instructions faithfully and unaltered way as it is, it's no surprise that you know we're not in the mainstream. We're not the popular ones. We are the ones, yeah, pointed out as as a threat, perhaps, to the comfort and convenience of those that are abusing yoga, abusing the yogic platform, abusing people. We are, historically speaking, we are the underdog always. And I mean, to that effect, we don't really mind it. We've been in that position uh, as a tradition, as a lineage for all time, basically. And so we know how to be in this position and thrive in it, just staying true to our lineage, our parampara, scriptural understanding, not compromising, not even one bit of how yoga should be practiced for self-gain or convenience or comfort. Uh, we we like that it's a complex and difficult endeavor. In that sense, we appreciate that. We don't settle for anything less because we know that the truth is not cheap. So we're willing to pay the price for it. And we know that we're not the only ones either. There might be others out there. And what we're trying to do is prevent that they get misled. Maybe it's you who's listening, that you get misled by those who would rather, see you in a ditch than give up their own comfort, convenience, pleasure seeking. So, yeah, we live in this age of Kali, of quarrel, hypocrisy, deceit. We live in it. This is what's happening. We know that the material battle is lost. Those people have the upper hand materially. They're going to be the more popular ones. They're going to be the more heard ones. They're going to be the more materially successful, perhaps, as well. They have the nicer clothes, they have the nicer venues, the newer mats, and whatever it is, all of the inessentials, and they can have it. It's fine. We know that that battle is lost. Materially, we're not even in that fight. But spiritually, the spiritual battle, it's at its turning point right now. I don't think that comes as a surprise either. You just look around, look the state of the world right now, the desperate need for truth and the scarcity of truth. Right? It's that imbalance is no coincidence either. This is the age of Kali indeed, and therefore one should be keen in researching and finding truth, actually, at whatever cost. If it takes your whole life looking for it, so be it. What else is there to do? Just settle for the facade. Settle for what you know to be a lie. I think that for anyone who's a real prospect and a real seeker for spiritual transcendence, that's never an option. So if you find that to be true, then I don't know, find yourself a place to practice yoga. That's the purpose of human life: to transcend, to serve, all the noble truths of yoga, what yoga traditionally presents, not to serve oneself, but to serve something higher. And that's a practical application, not just some abstract ideal, but something real, something true, something that needs to be learned, right? Something that needs to be received. You cannot snatch it from anywhere. You have to learn how to do that. So yeah, call to action. So for anyone who's actually interested in that, we are, this is a warning in terms of watch out, look out for yourself, try to actually be keen in researching for your own spiritual well-being. The work and effort that we do, we offer it upwards. We offer it to our lineage, to our spiritual preceptors and ancestors. In that sense, we live a life trying to honor their effort and everything they have given us, the opportunity that they have given us to actually practice something worthwhile, to make our lives worthwhile by something so noble as yoga. So that's what we try to do. But for everybody else, like what this message was basically addressing, all these cheaters, deceivers, and two-faced liars, I guess that's also a warning, but in a different tone, in a different way. For those of you who actively plot against the very foundation of this wonderful science of yoga, know that sooner or later, at some point, truth will descend upon you like a merciless curse. You have your chance. You have your chance to rectify, atone, reform, do things right. But if you actively choose to go against that, you cannot be surprised when that time comes. So probably it's not so far from that situation. So a warning as well. All right, well, that's it for this rant, and let's see what the future holds for us in this small little space. Jai Shri Ram.